Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of Planetos a podcast dedicated to the fans of George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire and HBO's Game of Thrones. Spoiler warning for our listeners, this show will cover all material, the main series, Dunk and Egg, the novellas, the world of Ice and Fire, quotes and interviews by George, and episodes of the show and its commentaries and bonus material. I'm one of your hosts, Brett. You can find me on Twitter at HomelyPillow.
And I'm your other host, Travis. You can find me on Twitter at Sir_Travis. We hope you enjoy today's show. This is our third episode focusing on minor characters. We kicked off this series a few weeks ago by talking about one of our favorite minor characters, Orain Waters, the bastard of Driftmark. Our second episode was put to you, the fans. We threw up a poll, you all responded, and you chose Lady Barbary Dustin. And we can't thank you enough for that because Brett and I liked Lady Barbary Dustin going into this podcast, but I think now we love her. She's a really fantastic character who, in our episode, The Aggrieved Widow, I think we unraveled some really interesting machinations that she's involved in, and she's going to have a lot of potential for the Winds of Winter. But here we are again. We asked you again, and you responded, and you chose Lord Jason Mallister, who we also think is going to have some interesting things to do in the Winds of Winter. So let's talk a little bit about Lord Jason and House Mallister. Now, Lord Jason is described as tall and lean. His hair is brown mixed with white, and he has fierce blue-gray eyes. He has a tight face with sharp cheekbones. He is described as clean-shaven in A Storm of Swords, though a lot of fan art from earlier in the series depicts him with a beard. His armor is indigo, which is a shade of purple, and his armor is trimmed in silver. He dons a helmet that is adorned with eagle's wings. He has one son, Patrick, who is his sole heir and who is close friends with Edmure Tully. According to Theon, Patrick loves women, drinking, and hawking. Theon and Patrick grow close as Lord Jason escorts Theon from Robb's camp to Seaguard, and Theon then sails to the Iron Islands. Now, back during Robert's Rebellion, Lord Jason attended Ned and Catelyn's wedding and is described as giving lavish gifts to the new Lord and Lady of Winterfell. He cuts down 3 of Rhaegar's own bannermen at the Trident, so he's considered a capable and fierce warrior. He's an accomplished jouster. In fact, when we first see him in the series, he is riding the King's Road to King's Landing for the Hands tournament. He is also an accomplished jouster. He was unseated by Rhaegar Targaryen and Barristan Selmy at the tournament at Storm's End, and also by Jorah Mormont at the tournament at Lannisport. So Lord Jason has a famous uncle in the series, and that's none other than Denys Mallister, who we know is at the Wall. He's a member of the Night's Watch. He's commander of the Shadow Tower, and he's actually a leading contender to become the 999th Lord Commander until he steps aside and supports Jon Snow when it appears that Janos Slynt is going to win.
Okay, this next section is on House Mallister itself. Mentioned in the Game of Thrones prologue, Will, the Night's Watch Ranger and our POV, is sent to the Wall because he was a poacher caught by Mallister free riders in Mallister Woods. 2 of the first houses mentioned in A Game of Thrones, Mallister and Royce, are some of the oldest in Westeros. House Mallister rules from Seaguard on the Cape of Eagles and is sworn to House Tully of Riverrun. Their sigil is a silver eagle on an indigo or purple field. Their words are above the rest. Sounds a little pretentious, maybe. Interesting house words, though. Like House Aaron's as high as honor, they are represented by a bird, an eagle instead of a falcon, and they simply seem to be known as honorable and respectable among Westeros. Seagard is both a town and a castle of House Mallister. It is located in the northern area of the Riverlands. It's right on the western coast along Iron Man's Bay and at the beginning point of where the Cape of Eagles reaches into the bay. It's nestled at the headwaters of the Blue Fork and southwest of the Twins and northwest of Old Stones. The booming tower of Seagard is named for its immense bronze bell, which is used to call townsfolk and others into safety of the castle when longships are sighted. The Mallisters have a small fleet of 6 longships and 2 war galleys to defend the region. Seagard was built before Aegon's conquest as a counter to the Ironborn threat. It was built along the coast with its express purpose of defending the coast against reavers. Now, the Ironborn ruled the Riverlands following the defeat of the Storm King Eric Durrandon? Or is that
Durrandon. I think Durrandon. I think you said it right.
Okay. Yeah.
You call it Durrandon. Durrandon.
Well, so Seagard was a part of their domain until Aegon Targaryen, supported by House Mallister, defeated Harren the Black and split the kingdom of Isles and Rivers back into 2 kingdoms. Specifically to Lord Jason, when Balon Greyjoy crowned himself the first king and rebelled against King Robert, Roderick Greyjoy, Lord Balon's eldest son, attacked Seagard. Lord Jason killed Roderick Greyjoy beneath the walls and pushed the Ironborn back into the sea. Robert Baratheon marched his army and forces to Seagard, where they waited on Stannis' ships to smash the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle. Then from Seagard, King Robert, Ned, and all the famed lords and knights who fought in the Greyjoy Rebellion sailed on the Iron Islands and ended the war.
So in A Game of Thrones, Lord Jason is traveling to King's Landing for the Hands tournament. He's accompanied by his son Patrick and a small party of knights and squires. They're traveling the King's Road from Seagard, and they actually pass Lady Catelyn Stark and Sir Roderick Cassel near the inn at the crossroads. But fortunately for Lady Catelyn, she is not recognized by them. During the tournament itself, Jason defeats Sir Aaron Santagar in a joust. In the opening weeks of war after the death of King Robert, Sir Kevin Lannister identifies Lord Jason and House Mallister as one of the only standing threats to the Lannister campaign in the Riverlands. But Lord Tywin disregards his brother, believing Jason is not strong enough to fight alone. Grand Maester Pycelle sends ravens demanding that Lord Jason and other river lords swear allegiance to the new king, Joffrey Baratheon. So once Robb Stark marches past the twins, Lord Mallister adds his own strength to Robb's and takes part in the Battle in the Whispering Wood, during which he captures Lord Westerling. The Mallister Eagle is one of the banners spotted during the Battle of the Camps, and after their victory, Jason sits at Robb's war council where he suggests fortifying the Riverlands and cutting off Tywin from supplies and fresh men. At this war council, Robb is named king in the north. In A Clash of Kings, when Robb announces his intention to send his friend Theon Greyjoy back to the Iron Islands as an envoy, Catelyn unsuccessfully suggests sending Jason instead. Jason is the one, like we said earlier, who returns to Seagard accompanied by Patrick and Theon. And he actually thinks that
his son is growing too close to the young Ironborn.
So Jason reminds Patrick whom Seagard was built to defend against, like Brett said earlier. As no ships from the Iron Islands await Theon when they arrive in Seagard, Jason believes the ravens Robb had sent from River Run to announce Theon's return had been lost, and thus he sends his own birds. At the Battle of the Fords, Jason commands the defense of 4 fords along the Red Fork, including the one closest to River Run. Catelyn is actually watching from the balconies and windows of River Run as Jason's men defeat Lannister riders, and Jason later sends a messenger to inform River Run of Lord Flemont Brax's defeat. In A Storm of Swords, when Robb returns to River Run from the Westerlands, Jason is cool but courteous toward Catelyn, who, of course, famously releases Jaime Lannister without the king's permission. He is one of the 7 nobles who were chosen to launch the funeral boat of Lord Hoster Tully at River Run, and a clean-shaven Jason meets Robb, king of the Trident now as well, at Hagsmire on his march north to the Twins. Jason brings with him the captain of the Miraham, who brings news of Balon Greyjoy's death. Now, the Miraham was the boat that took Theon to the Iron Islands. It was then kept there for a number of months by the Ironborn, and when Balon Greyjoy dies or is killed, and Euron takes the Seastone chair, the Miraham is able to slip away and comes to Seaguard. So at this meeting at Hagsmire, Jason is ordered by Robb to send 2 Mallister longships into the Neck, one carrying Galbert Glover and the other Mage Mormont,
to search for Greywater Watch
and inform Lord Howland Reed of Robb's plan to retake Moat Cailin. Robb intends for Catelyn to spend the rest of the war in safety with Lord Mallister at Seaguard after the wedding of Lord Edmure Tully and Rosalind Frey. And of course, we know that Robb and Catelyn are betrayed by Bolton and Frey and murdered during the Red Wedding. In A Feast for Crows, Lord Jason surrenders his castle at Seaguard to Blackwalder Frey after he threatens to hang Patrick, who had been taken captive at the Red Wedding. Blackwalder keeps Jason as a prisoner inside his own castle alongside his son, and in A Dance with Dragons, it is stated that Lord Jason and his son remain imprisoned in the castle Seaguard.
I just want to know if they did that same thing they were doing to Edmure, to the Blackfish. Were they doing the same thing? Did he fall for it?
That's the only thing they had. That's like, okay, this is our move. We're going to put up gallows. We're going to climb up to the top. We're going to threaten to hang this person, and we're going to see what happens.
But would Blackwalder Frey actually do it though? I wonder.
I don't know. That is probably not. I mean, fucking phrase.
Because who was threatening to hang Edmure?
Ryman Frey.
Okay.
But the phrase are all alike, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Winds of Winter. So, like we said earlier in the episode, House Mallister is considered very honorable. And they have a lot of similarities to House Aaron. They've got a bird as a symbol. Their motto, above the rest, is very similar to as high as honor. We know that the Knights of the Vale are probably, most likely, going to be on Sansa's side or at her back with their cavalry and their infantry and their horses and everything ready to go. House Mallister definitely doesn't have the strength and the power that House Aaron does, but I think we think that something is going to happen in the Riverlands. Something is going to happen at River Run or at the Twins, or as the hostages are being transported from River Run to Casterly Rock. Will House Mallister play a part in all of that come the Winds of Winter?
I mean, I hope so. I just don't know how he's going to get out, because he's imprisoned right now.
Let's play this out just a minute. And I think we're shaped by speculation. And we've talked about this in a previous episode, that there's a lot of speculation and prediction happening in this fandom.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the best theories that I've read about the opening of the Winds of Winter is a prologue told from the perspective of, and of course it can be told from anyone's perspective, but specifically this person tells it from the perspective, or thinks it will be told from the perspective of Ilyn Payne.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone kind of refers to it as the Silent Man. Brienne has come to find Jaime to bring him to Lady Stoneheart. But before that happens, Jamie has ordered an escort on Jane Westerling and Edmure Tully to take them west from River Run. The theory
of the Silent Man prologue
that the Brotherhood without banners or some force is probably going to attack them and either free Edmure and Jane Westerling or completely slaughter a bunch of Lannisters. And then even some theories say the Wolfpack, or Nymeria's Wolfpack, is going to swoop in and kill everyone, which is going to set up the Winds of Winter as, everybody's going to get the shit kicked out of them or eaten very soon. So I think from that perspective, it's going to open up some avenues for the River Lords to begin to retake, to fight back against the Freys and the Lannisters. But like you said, he's imprisoned in his castle, and while it's not exactly completely far away from River Run, Seaguard is not right beside River Run, and they're going south and west toward Casterly Rock, so he probably won't have an effect on that, right?
No, maybe not. Unless he's able to somehow take his castle back, but I don't know.
Yeah, unless it's like a coordinated attack or something.
Yeah.
Unless there's some, Brotherhood without banners conspiracy, and
well, I do wonder if it might depend on where Blackfish decides to go too, because he's on the loose. So I don't know. That's a stretch, but that could be where he's headed that way.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things about that is when you go back and you read the Jamie chapters in A Feast for Crows, Jamie leaves a singer alone with Edmure Tully. Now that turns out to be Tom of Seven Strings, right?
Yeah. So
all right.
So we know the Brotherhood has infiltrated.
Right. So they've infiltrated
the Lannister army.
And he probably told Edmure, hey, do this. Go back as Lord of River Run. Do what Jaime Lannister wants you to do. But give us some time to get the Blackfish and some other key people out of the castle, and then open the gates. And we've got this covered. We've got a plan. We're coming. We're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to take it. There could be someone from the Brotherhood without banners infiltrating Seaguard as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wonder too how much the Crannogmen are going to play a role in all of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that mission to get Greywater to Greywater Watch and have Hallan Reed help Robb. Now, here's what's very interesting. So let's jump back to Hagsmire. In the lead up to arriving at Hagsmire, there's that great exchange between Robb and Catelyn where he decides that he's going to name Jon Snow as his heir because he knows that Sansa is held by the Lannisters. They think Arya's dead. They think Bran and Rickon are dead, and he has no child by Jane, and so he wants to make sure that the North is secure and that their family is secure. Obviously, Catelyn pushes back against that, but he ultimately decides to do it. So when they arrive at Hagsmire and Lord Jason has arrived with the captain of the Miraham to let them know what's happened on the Iron Islands, Robb convenes a council, his war council. I want to list who's at that war council. Obviously, along with King Robb are, like we said, Lord Jason Mallister, Reynold Westerling, who is the Jane's brother, the Great John Umber, Galbert Glover, Mage Mormont, Edmure Tully, and Catelyn Tully. Now, at that meeting, this is where Robb says that he wants the lords to affix their seal to his will. And we know, like we said, that his will says that Jon Snow is his heir. So they place their seal on the document at Robb's orders, and then he tells Lord Jason to take Mage Mormont and Galbert Glover back to Seaguard, put them on 2 separate ships, and get them to Greywater Watch to find Howland Reed. And in fact, each of them are carrying false orders. So if they're captured, the orders that they'll have on them are false, and the Ironborn or whomever might capture them would receive inaccurate information. Now, going back to Seaguard as well with Lord Jason is the captain of the Miraham. Robb was very careful about what information he put on Galbert Glover and Mage Mormont. Robb famously says that you never put all of your treasures in one purse. So where is Robb's will?
I don't know. You would think you'd have more than one, one copy.
Right. I mean, I don't keep a copy of my will on me.
Yeah.
It's kept in a safe place, so if something would happen. I just think it's interesting that, again, he's going to send Catelyn to Seaguard. He's telling her that you don't keep all your treasures in one purse because that makes it easier for those who would rob you, meaning divide up your orders.
Yes,
which is similar to the false orders that he gives Glover and Mormont. So I've read some things that people think maybe Lord Jason has it, and of course some people are saying, well, the phrase when he surrendered probably would have searched the castle. Well, I mean, you could probably hide a will somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of places that they would never know to search. So, because that was my first thought. I'm like, well, he's captured,
Right.
but that could be a way for George to keep the will a mystery until he wants it to not be,
Right.
until he wants the contents read. So, yeah, I mean, there is a good chance Jason has that.
Robb has also put false orders in writing on Mage and Galbert. So maybe he puts some false orders in writing on Lord Jason as well, and those are at Seaguard. Instead, Robb, is relying on oral record for his commanders to carry out his wishes, what they discussed in that tent, and what the plan was going forward.
There's also an interesting theory that the captain of the Miraham has it, that he is sent, and that ship, the Miraham, is out of Old Town. That's where it originates from. Who's at Old Town?
Sam.
So
yeah.
Some people contend that the Miraham is going to return to Old Town, and this will is somehow going to fall into the hands of Sam. I think some people might theorize that maybe it goes north. Well, any ports north are very hard to get to because we know the Ironborn have the Stony Shore and Sea Dragon Point.
Yeah.
Locked up at this time. They'd have to make for Bear Island, probably. And it would be hard to probably navigate through the Ironborn territories at this point.
Well, it makes sense for it to be sent to Old Town, too, because, the Maesters are going to copy that information.
Yep, that's a good point.
Too. If it goes through them at any point.
Right.
I don't know if that was the plan or whatnot, but...
So, whether Lord Jason has it or not, he probably knows. He's either got it on him in that castle, or he knows that it's on the captain of the Miraham and headed toward Old Town and for a purpose.
Yeah.
So what happens? What happens when look, we're talking about Lord Jason as a very honorable person. I mean, every character who encounters him in the books says he's an honorable guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's even honorable to the point where when he sees Catelyn again after she has released Jaime Lannister, he is cold to her. Now, obviously a lot of Northmen are cold to her, even her own son, because of what she did.
Mhm.
But that means that he's being honorable to his king. His kings did not command him to be released. So, because he's so honorable, and he probably knows the contents of that letter, that will, you know, will he try to get to Jon Snow and help Jon Snow at some point?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I feel like he's been set up to do something. I mean,
Yeah,
he's a complete badass. I mean, he's he slayed three of Rhaegar's bannermen at the Trident. He killed one of Theon Greyjoy's brothers. Like,
right.
uh, I don't know. I just hope he comes on screen and does something, or on screen, on page. And
Right. Yeah,
uh,
it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And, one of the other possibilities is that like we said, there could be a Brotherhood Without Banner operative inside Seaguard now. But, the thing that really gets me, and this is true with the Blackfish as well, what's going to happen when they encounter Lady Stoneheart? I mean, because that's not Catelyn Stark, and she is on a quest, a thirst for blood and vengeance
yeah,
that, you know, I'm sure they would be happy to kill a lot of Freys. We would all be happy for them to kill a lot of Freys, but that doesn't make some of the things that she's doing right.
yeah. I mean,
So,
she's willing to kill like Podrick,
right,
for
right,
even being
right.
associated. Like, he's what, like 12 in the books or
Yeah,
something, or 11, 12. I don't know. So, yeah,
right,
he's young. He's a kid. I don't see Jason Mallister being okay with that. So,
right, right.
Okay, so Brett, we've talked about Jason Mallister being a very honorable person. Um, their motto, House Mallister's motto, is above the rest. What really strikes me about that is that it seems like in every situation, the Mallisters are probably going to bend toward the honorable thing to do, a very Ned Stark like thing. So if there is a Red Wedding 2.0, or um, Lady Stoneheart goes on a rampage, which we're already seeing her do, goes on a rampage of vengeance and bloodthirst throughout the Riverlands, it might be hard for Jason Mallister and House Mallister to go along with that. Yes, the Freys did this to the North and the River Lords, but not every Frey is guilty of that. And so I think that above the rest, that honorable mentality, could really lead to a clash between Lady Stoneheart and some of the members of the Brotherhood Without Banners and House Mallister.
I think so. I think a lot of people have draw the line at like killing children,
Right.
especially, and it seems like, yeah, Lady Stoneheart's definitely willing to do that. I mean, it's caused problems with Davos and Stannis, Robert and Ned.
Right. Right.
Um, I think that's a big issue.
Yeah, revenge can be satisfying, but it's not a good policy. It's not a good way to act or react to a situation. And eventually, that cosmic justice, it all kind of comes back around. And so I think that if, we've talked about House Mallister and Lord Jason coming back into the narrative at some point, and it's probably going to be, if he comes back in as a supporter of Lady Stoneheart, it's probably going to be hard for him to go along with some of the acts that she's committing in the Riverlands.
And in addition to the will that he may or may not have on him, and the captain of the Miraham that may be going to Old Town, and that he probably knows its intended mission. You also got Galbert Glover and Mage Mormont somewhere in the neck, trying to find Greywater Watch on board 2 Mallister ships. So while he's imprisoned, he's got a lot of knowledge of all of these machinations that are happening after Rob's death. So if Howland Reed does come back into the story in The Winds of Winter, which I think we all think is going to happen, although we don't really know how or when or where, it's quite possible that Jason he might be assisting Howland Reed as well.
Yeah, I think I think maybe he's going to get wrapped up in that whole Riverlands plot, whatever is going to happen. Maybe the Red Wedding 2.0 thing, that theory, I think he's going to be right alongside a lot of these people with whatever happens in the Riverlands.
There's obviously some soldiers of House Frey guarding Seaguard in some capacity, but if the Brotherhood Without Banners completely slaughter the Lannister army, taking Jane Westerling to the west, and then turn their sights on Riverrun and the Twins, I'm sure they're going to make sure that they free all of their supporters, including Jason Mallister, in order to march on the Twins and prepare to, like you said, Red Wedding 2.0, the phrase.
Yeah, so I like that. Like the ambush on Jaime's army, then you have maybe a lot of these people going around the Riverlands, freeing up some of these castles, because Seaguard's probably not garrisoned, as much as it would need to be to, because I'm sure that the Freys are spread thin a little bit, trying to
And if you have all these coordinated attacks, coordinated hits by the Brotherhood Without Banners all at once, the Freys, I mean, they like we said earlier, they can barely figure out a way to threaten people to open the gates.
Yeah, it seems like the only really clever one is Walder Frey, really. I mean,
right. He's so he can barely leave the Twins.
Yeah. And I wonder how many Freys are up north. I mean, like, I wonder what the Frey army is looking like.
I don't know their numbers, because I think Hostine Frey, I think he takes about 2,000 soldiers north with him. I think that's right.
Yeah, and I want to say
it might be less than that, but
I want to say like Walder Frey had 4,000, like when he first sent 4,000 or something.
Here, I want to look that up real quick.
Yeah,
I actually think 2,000 is too much then. Maybe.
Well, I don't think it was. I think he sent 4,000, and then I think there was another 1,500 troops somewhere.
Aenys and Hostine commanded 2,000 Frey swords that are sent with Lord Bolton to retake the north. So there are 2,000 Frey soldiers north.
I mean, that's a big chunk of their army. It's got to be.
That is a big chunk. Yeah. Odd Walder Frey. What a sick thug. A lot of Frey soldiers in the north. 2,000 under Hostine's command that are helping the Boltons retake the north. And like you said, that takes a considerable chunk of their power out of the Riverlands. If the Lannister army is decimated or severely, their numbers are severely decreased by an attack of the Brotherhood Without Banners or whatever, that's obviously going to change the game in the Riverlands. And then whatever happens with Jaime, I mean, whatever Lady Stoneheart decides to do with Jaime, or I still kind of think Jaime not necessarily going to trick Lady Stoneheart, but I think he's going to promise her something, which could be Red Wedding 2.0. Like, let me go, they'll open the gates for me, and then you can slip in and
that could everyone. Be well, because you got to think too. The last thing she heard was Jaime Lannister sends his regards,
right?
And he and he didn't mean it like that, you know.
Right. Right.
But I guess that's what
Yeah. I mean, Jamie just kind of meant it as like a joke. Like, tell him,
yeah,
him well.
yeah, so I don't know, that could play a big part of that whole thing.
Yeah. Now, another force that could obviously have significant impact on the Riverlands is whatever Sansa decides to do with the Knights of the Vale, or whatever Peter Baelish decides to do with the Knights of the Vale if he's still the Lord Protector. So, she could ride into the Riverlands and help free her family or whatever, and then turn her soldiers north for Winterfell.
And another force that could have serious impact on the Riverlands, Lady Stoneheart, and the Brotherhood Without Banners is a force that we talked about a few episodes ago in the Lady Dustin episode, and that's the Kyle Condon force. That's the force of Northmen that were left by Roose Bolton somewhere in the Riverlands. So we know that at some point they're going to come back into the story.
So that's something else to consider. A lot of background information there on Lord Jason. He's honorable. He's a good warrior. He's probably still carrying out some of Rob's orders. He's going to be faithful to either the Tullys or the Starks or both of them. But we just really don't know what's going to happen. And I don't think there's really a clear picture of what he's going to do because there's a lot of variables that have to play out in order for, one, him to retake control of Seaguard. And that could easily, I mean, you could easily have someone somewhere saying, word is that Lord Jason has destroyed his Frey captors at Seaguard and retaken the castle. I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that too. Like maybe there is some sort of ploy that goes on that just happens off page, and then you find out later what happened.
Right. That's I would say that's likely. And
yeah.
Anything else on Lord Jason?
No. I think that's it. I mean, I think a lot of it is just a lot of speculation of what he could end up doing, and like.
But I think you're right. I mean, I think you said it best when you said he's set up to do something.
Yeah.
He's sent his ships with Mage Mormont and Galbert Glover. He either has that will or he sent that will with the captain of the Mirrorhand. He's sitting there in that castle just waiting for someone to free him or for the right opportunity to free himself. I mean, he's going to come back into the equation in some capacity.
It's just like, yeah, and like with these minor characters, like you just don't realize how much these characters are not always on page, but mentioned or alluded to a lot. And I mean, that he's a big one, like that's alluded, like he's in a lot more than I even realized, with all the stuff you gathered. And so
you mentioned it when we were talking about that the Mallisters and the Royces are the two first houses we hear about in the entire series.
Yeah.
And it's speculated that, well, we know that the Royces, their lineage goes back thousands and thousands of years, because they were actually probably, I guess, descended from the First Men at some point, and then assimilated into the Andal culture that really took root in the Vale.
Mm-hmm.
But their castle is runestone. I think they have a lot of runes in their symbols and on their banners. The Mallisters are said to be very old, and actually it's theorized that their lineage goes back to a lot of the First Men hunting cultures, because again, in the Game of Thrones prologue, Will was a poacher in Mallister Woods.
Oh yeah.
So that's just kind of interesting that they go back so far. I don't guess it really ever says anything about Mallister's faith. I'm sure it's faith in the Seven.
Yeah.
But maybe at one time they worship the old gods.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder too if like all those houses, like the Royces, and the Mallisters are kind of mentioned a lot in the beginning, and they're kind of off screen for most part. I wonder if like
Yeah,
George always had them in mind for like an end game type of thing.
could
But
be, absolutely.
yeah, as the world expanded when he was writing, they kind of took a back burner for a while, and now they're coming into play. And he made sure to like keep throwing little details in there throughout it, so you don't forget about them.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I think you still do on, but then when you go back and reread them, you're like, oh yeah, this character's doing all this, like he did all this or she did all this. So
Oh yeah. I mean, as I was working on the script, every time I went to write Jason Mallister, I wanted to write Justin Massey.
yeah,
So, I'm just like, wait, no, this is Jason Mallister.
yeah,
So yeah, no, like I had forgot, like not that I had forgotten this character, but I had forgotten that he was a presence, like you said, from the beginning. I mean,
yeah.
it's one of the first things that Catelyn sees on her journey south.
Yeah, and I'd even forgotten that was Jason Mallister. Like
Right.
I'd forgotten about that. Like I knew that scene, but like I didn't pay attention to who it was. So
Right. All right. Well, I
I,
don't think I don't think there's anything else on Jason Mallister. We
I
hope for a lot in the Winds of Winter.
yeah.
So hopefully next year we'll get to read more.
Yeah, I mean it's really sounding like from the news or whatnot that 2019 is when Winds of Winter's coming out. So hopefully that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hope so.
But you know what? If it's not, if it needs more time, that's fine
It
too.
is.
I hope it doesn't need more time, but
Please, please, please.
Uh, all right. Well, thanks for listening. You can find us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at planetospodcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, or any other platform that supports the RSS feed. Please rate and review us on anything you can. That really helps us out. You can email us at planetospodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions or ideas. I've been one of your hosts, Brett.
And I've been Travis. See you around Planetos.